Exactly. You're right.
We can't start till everybody's seated. I would say when you're talking to hold this closer than you think it should be held.
Okay. I have short arms, so it'll probably be okay.
T-Rex. And after I talk, don't start right away because I got to put the screen up.
Give me a signal.
And yeah, just when it's up, you can start. Actually, I'll do it right now. Actually, can you push the left thing that says up? Will that go off automatically?
No.
What do you think that is, left or right? Off. Do I dare turn it off? I'm too scared to do that. It is? Okay. Oh, that was a lot. Oh no, the whole system's going off.
I try to tell people that marketing online is not synonymous with IT.
No.
Nobody wants to hear it.
Look at. I don't have any way to stop it.
Oh, yeah, because the lamps have to cool down completely before they can be turned back on. You're also talking to YouTube, by the way.
We'll all get cut out. We'll all be good on the edit room floor. Hold on, guys. I screwed up the screens, but we'll start in a second. The system is rebooting. How many people here do PPC for a living every day? That's it? How many people have to do PPC a little bit every week because they just have to? Who here is managing more than $1,000 a month in PPC? Nice. What's the thing you're hoping to get away from, take away from tonight's talk that you think would help you the most? Anybody who just raised their hand, or anybody who didn't? Tracy, anyone? Tracy?
I mean, I did go to hour and it didn't work out that good for me in my first attempt, so I'm just looking for an alternative.
What does that mean that it didn't work out?
One answer.
Does that mean you put money in and you didn't get what you thought you were going to get? So you said, I'm pulling the plug?
And I did very concentrated, which is, I said a very large budget for a period of like 2 weeks before an event that I had. And it just didn't give me the return for as concentrated as I thought it should have.
When you say concentrated, you mean keywords or geographically, or both?
If I stop talking, well, I can go.
No, I'm just going to ask harder questions.
No, what I mean concentrated is for a particular campaign, like how long I ran it in proximity to my event, and then what kind of traffic I got back from that. That's what I mean.
Quality of traffic?
Yeah, quality was, quality, number, actual
Coming back?
turnout, website hits, just anything that would have made me happy from having done that.
I think we've got a few tips between the two of us on how to cover
The first tip is hire one of them. Pay them all the money you gave to Google. Is it coming? Almost there.
Hey.
Look at that. All right. So welcome, everybody. This is July, right? We're still in July, just barely. Tonight, we're going to be talking PPC. I asked two of my favorite PPC people, but they weren't available, so I got these two. Mina Martinez, who I used to work with at Verante and now is out on her own at The Dots Media. She is the founder/principal at The Dots Media. I give her as much business as I can because, I don't know why, just because I love her. Cole Watts, well, yeah, there's that. She's good at what she does. Cole Watts is the head of marketing at The Design, an award-winning web design and internet marketing company here in Raleigh. Cole's been coming to these forever, and finally said to me, hey, doofus, I know my stuff too. You should let me talk, which is certainly true enough. So these two are going to take you through the next 6.5 hours, so sit back and enjoy.
Not 6.5 hours, right? So now that we're all smiling again, you know, all of you guys are here today to talk about how to maximize what you're doing in AdWords, increase your ROI, make everything more manageable and effective. So kind of to take this to a very top level, there are primarily two different networks that Google AdWords works with, and some of you are already aware of this now that we know the audience that we have here. These two networks are search and display. I'll be walking you through some things you can do on the search network, and Cole, who's co-presenting here, will be walking you through display. All right, so when we're talking about things you can do on the search network, you know, we kind of have to start with where that is. And essentially, those ads that you're going to be showing on that particular network tend to be those that show up on the search results page. So, you know, I've added an image here that tells you, you know, kind of where these are and kind of outline the areas in red. There's several different formats that happen on the search results page. The first being over here with these text ads. Search ads, when you're working in the Google platform, you'll also see some shopping campaigns come up, and then you can also have retargeting for search. So these are some of the different things that show up on the search results page, and we're going to be talking about ways to maximize these ads. To give you an idea about how these formats are kind of made available here, I'll walk you through the most popular in the search network here, and these are the text ad formats. These are essentially composed of a headline, 2 description lines, a display URL, which is essentially showing your website. You can also take advantage of having a phone number present. You'll see here in the bottom towards the right, there's a star rating system that you can show, and some other features that these particular ads have that allow you to increase the effectiveness of those campaigns, increasing the amount of clicks you get for per the rate of them being shown. So, you know, when you take advantage of all of these different formats that are available, what you have is an awesome opportunity, you know, to be able to capture a relevant, qualified audience. So, you know, we know where these ads are now, but what kind of businesses are they good for? And essentially, Google AdWords, there we go. Google AdWords can be used for a number of different things. They're great for, you know, promoting products, great for services, events, as mentioned earlier, and then just general awareness campaigns regarding your organization, ideas, or things of the like. So when I have prospective clients come to me in any of these areas here, and they're like, hey, you know, I have this account, we've been running it for a while, it's not as effective as we thought it should be. Here are our goals. Can you outline like some of the areas where we can improve them to make them better? And what I find is that those areas often fall into 3 categories. So with the top 3 fixes for search campaigns, those areas that are most often identified, you can see kind of relate to how you plan campaigns, how you do the planning and the design and the structure, and how important that is to get it right. Hopefully that's communicated by the image here. Without proper planning, like, it just doesn't come together. These areas that require this planning is audience targeting, the account structure, and then actual use of the tools and features that AdWords makes available to you. So we'll be walking through a lot of those different areas here today. Starting with audience targeting, let's see here. Google gives us a lot of different tools that we can use to help build our brand. These tools are typically in the settings, set at campaign level. And what a lot of people don't realize is that you can set individual campaigns to not just target geographical locations, on a big level. You can go as far down as states, zip codes, radius around a zip code. These are very effective when you're trying to find the area that has your qualified audience. New features allow you to even target airports, universities, commercial areas. Great for those who are in transportation business and other areas like that. So these are really awesome features to take advantage of. With regards to demographics, there's also a feature where you can even target people specifically based on their average household income. So let's say you work in retail and you have a product that tends to be a little bit more expensive than average. Setting your campaigns to target just those people who have the disposable income available to purchase your items would help that campaign be far more effective. So another thing that we should understand when we're looking at audience targeting here is when we're setting these locations, there's a couple different things that we can do with regards to those locations. We can either set it to look at the physical location of where the user is, or their locations of interest. So locations of interest would be, for example, if somebody was in, I don't know, Russia or somewhere like that, and they decided that or let's say they consume a lot of content that's written in English on American sites, and you can target them as well. Or you might want to exclude them. So these are the kinds of features that you're going to want to take advantage of. With regards to devices, it's important to recognize that desktop and tablet are targeted together, and then you can separate out mobile. So let's see here. So that's great. We've talked about targeting here. So the next item is account structure. And I tried to pick an image that was probably the most effective at communicating how absurd campaigns can get if you kind of let them grow and unravel on their own without setting up the proper structure in place, proper planning and design. Completely useless as an end result, right? A/B test. It does look like AP test. I like that. So, what this image here can communicate a lot of different things, but one of the first things that came to mind is how with a lot of these prospective accounts that I'm looking at, they have a lot of competition, both internally within the campaign structure, but they also have a lot of external competition that's irrelevant. So it's really important when you're structuring these campaigns to make sure that you're filtering all your keywords through the right campaigns. Let me back up a little bit. We'll get to that in a moment here. Account structure. Important for us to be able to tackle on the problems that come from internal and external competition. If we have the proper structure, we can also allow for flexibility and scalable growth, and then you're also able to allocate budget by individual segments. So it's important to recognize that those are done at a campaign level, and so if you want to be able to mitigate wasted spend or be able to pull certain levers and dials with regards to budget, that you have to set that up from a structural standpoint first. So the way I recommend a lot of these prospective clients and then clients themselves tackle on their account structure is to implement kind of an ADA model. It's a reason why this can kind of be a little bit interesting is we're going to be looking at this model kind of similarly, but there are some differences to the way we would use that for paid search. But it's still an effective model to kind of model your campaigns after. Some other things you want to do is take advantage of the filtering features that are available on the search network, and then modify budget allocations to complement the model that you've set up so that you're able to spend more money in the profitable areas. So the reason why I backed up earlier is I just want to make sure we all understand what this account structure looks like for those who are new to AdWords or have kind of just glossed over some of the material for learning that's available out there. And I'm looking at this kind of a backwards way from the way they show you in the education material. And here's why. I think a lot of us understand that AdWords is composed of keywords, ad groups, campaigns, and account. But what's very important for a lot of people to realize is that you must have relevant keywords and put your keywords in such a way that all the relevant keywords that can share a particular ad, the most relevant ad for them, only those go in your ad groups, right? What I often see is that a lot of people take, their campaigns and look at it kind of like on a holistic level and say all of these keywords relate in some way and I'm going to show them all this kind of ad. And the trouble with that is that some of those keywords could be served with a better ad, and if you find that that's happening, then they need to go in their own ad group. And this is going to help us tackle on some issues down the road. So when we put these relevant keywords together, we put them in these tightly themed ad groups. Those ad groups form your campaign, relevant ad groups form your campaign, and then your account is essentially constructed or composed of those campaigns. So how does this affect, or how does this work with that ADA model that I was mentioning here? Here's how, right? So the way I look at campaign structure is you need to segment your campaigns by intent. So you have your traffic that has fairly low intent. Those are more your awareness campaigns or the entry for your visitors to your site, right? Then you have a collection of visitors who are interested, or maybe they have some kind of modifier on the term, like maybe best. So for example, if you're selling shoes and someone's looking for running shoes, that might be awareness level. Those kinds of keywords, as broad as they are, need to go in their own campaign. Then when we look at those people who are looking for best running shoes, or best running shoes for a particular type of terrain, those have a level of specificity that give it a higher level of intent. And I classify those as mid-intent, right? And they need to go in their own group as well. Then what we do is we have the final collection of terms, and these are those people who might be looking for a particular model of running shoe. Those people, if they've already decided on a particular model of shoe, then they're probably already familiar with the price, they've already done all their comparison shopping, and they're looking to buy. Those need to go in their own separate campaigns so that you can allot more budget to them as opposed to the other terms. And this is the reason why I suggest people consider this model when they're looking at structuring their campaigns. Further things that you can do once you've kind of set up this basic structure based on these levels of interest is make sure that you're applying these campaigns to the proper network. I recommend that people separate these networks, keeping search, traffic with search, and then separating out display. Just makes things easier in terms of management and in terms of budget allocation, though there are some new features that can make the search and display network option attractive for some people. Anyways, moving on. So creating the tightly themed ad groups that I mentioned earlier, ensuring that they have shareable, relevant ads between those collections of keywords, taking advantage of what's called match types, broad match modifiers, negative keywords. If you have questions about what those mean, feel free to grab me after the event. This is kind of just high level. So then the following is to continually monitor and filter out for irrelevant terms that you see coming into these different campaigns. So we've looked at how to separate these campaigns by intent. Now how do we relate that to the actual spend that we have? And
I have a question.
yes.
Okay, if you get too specific, it seems that AdWords throws you out, they give you a little comment that says low search volume, and they won't even accept your ad. So if you try to get too specific, so that you have a low cost per click.
Mhm.
They just put it out, which I think.
There's a couple different ways you can look at that. For some people who are coming out with a new product, then they might see those kinds of status messages fairly often, and it doesn't matter. They're still going to show the ad when somebody does the searches for it, and it's just a matter of the volume that's attributed to those keywords. With regards to having low status, having those keywords in your campaign, I would recommend you kind of look at the overall health of the campaign, and I think it's okay to have a few of those words in it. And it's not going to cause much harm. And it's still important to go ahead and create a separate bucket for that, because even if you did keep it in the same bucket to keep it a lot broader, then the problem is that you're going to find is going to trickle down to your ROI or return on ad spend, where there's particular queries that came in because you had a broader setup can drag down the performance that you see from those keywords that give you more revenue or more conversions for whatever you're looking for. Yeah, if you look, if you were to kind of click on the status message, it gives you it kind of explains what that status message means, and it just means that it might not show often. It's kind of like an alert or a warning or whatnot, but typically, as traffic for those keywords builds, those ads will begin to show. All right, so with regards to ad spend and this particular model again, this is kind of what a healthy account kind of looks like. And here's why. A lot of brands are focusing, obviously, on the action that's taking place. They want someone to produce this kind of conversion or this desired result. We want them to behave in a certain fashion when they get to the site. For those keywords that are more likely to produce that action, that's where we want to make sure we're putting a heavy amount of spend, right? Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, with regards to how you see the value in brand awareness, you'll see that there's a lot of volume that takes place at the awareness level. And because of that volume, that particular segment, or those segments, have the propensity to spend a decent amount of budget as well. So that's kind of why it's heaviest on the top and bottom of this funnel. And it's a fairly good idea to apply 50% of your budget towards the interest and desire areas. These are the ones that are going to create a lot of volume for you and make up the majority of spend collectively, but just ensuring that you have an appropriate amount of spend for the action. If you have limited resources, you may want to have this kind of hourglass figure heavier towards the bottom. And that's what I recommend. Finding out what those keywords are and those segments that are going to give you the most profitability and applying your budget there. But without the proper structure, you're not going to be able to do that. So, moving on. This is something that I see happen pretty frequently with people who are coming to me with their campaigns. They've done all this work, they've done all this research, they've set up all these campaigns, applied this structure, and then they just expected it to kind of run itself. And the problem is all of us marketers who do this pretty often realize that these campaigns don't run themselves. There's no way that they will. Your audience changes, your audience evolves, and as their behavior evolves, you're going to start seeing different things happen in the search queries that you may not have necessarily anticipated. You may see some things change in the market with regards to your competitors that you didn't necessarily anticipate. And so it's very important to make sure that you're taking advantage of Google's features that allow you to monitor what's happening in your campaigns and ensure that you're paying attention to these changes and can move flexibly with them as well. And so that's the final area that could provide very helpful for a lot of people who are looking at ways to optimize their campaigns. If you take advantage of the features that Google has available, just becoming familiar with them, one, is a great step in the right direction. But essentially, if you were to take advantage of them, you're able to actually track conversions. This is probably the #1 problem I see with a lot of sites. They're not actually tracking conversions or haven't applied a value to them, so they have no idea whether or not things are working out well for them. So step one. Using some of the additional features that AdWords allows you to have with regards to things like their site link extensions, which allows you to increase your real estate on the search results page. These are really helpful. Some of those extensions also allow for you to put the phone number, the 5-star rating that we saw earlier, some of those other features. And with that increased real estate, you're actually building your brand authority on that page and increasing the likelihood of clicks. So some of the other features allow you to also improve performance because you have the opportunity to test messaging, to test a lot of other elements of the account structure, and to actually run experiments to particular landing pages or whatnot. I recommend that a lot of people take advantage of these here, because if you're looking at how to make AdWords work for you is only one part of the problem. It's only the part of the problem that addresses bringing qualified traffic in. There's the second part of the problem that happens outside of AdWords, which is what that traffic does when they get to your page. But using the tools in AdWords, you can see how that traffic is behaving on those pages or behaving once they leave from the ad. And it's very important in how you might modify your campaigns in the future. So again, understanding visitor behavior. These features also allow you to gain a competitive edge with different insights into your competitive landscape. So taking advantage of those tools, and I don't mind showing people if you want to know where some of these tools are, just feel free to grab me. And then the final thing is if you find you're too busy to continue monitoring your account or applying the amount of time necessary to make these work, because it is a lot of work. It just is by nature. If you find that you need something to kind of help you, there's tools in place that allow you to add scripts that can help automate a lot of the work for you. So taking advantage of those features too can help you run a more effective search campaign. All right, so again, if you have any questions about the material that I've presented here, you want to know where some of these features are, feel free to grab me here. If you're interested in audits, consultation, help with management, we can talk about some of those details as well. Here's my contact information, and I'm going to be passing on to Cole here now. Oh.
Does anyone have questions for Nina? Because we're going to switch over slides to Cole anyway, so if you got intermittent questions you want to hit her with, feel free. I will switch over. What's the next slide? Oh, you just put it right after?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah, okay. So this is interesting here. It will require that you actually pay attention to the search query reports, which a lot of people don't like to hear, right? To make that list very effective. With regards to that list, there's a couple of different ways that you can approach it. You can approach applying them as you see them at an ad group level, but if you have a really well-structured campaign, you can do it at the campaign level. I recommend that you use phrase matching instead of broad matching, which is very important for those negative keywords. Again, that's kind of talking about match types there. And then what I would recommend doing is putting as many of them as you can think of in actual lists, like relevant lists, so that as things become relevant or as your audience's behavior evolves or changes, you can easily find those keywords later to move them or change them or modify them as need be. Does that answer your question, or are you looking for something a little bit different here? Okay. Yep. Okay. Oh. Yeah. All right. So, okay, let's say you have a karate studio. Off the top of my head, some immediate things I would want to make sure that I took off. I would negative match videos because a lot of people would be looking for karate studio, videos so that they can get an insight into what they look like in the inside, so that they can get insight into what those studios look like inside. And if you don't have a video on your website, then you're kind of wasting dollars towards that spend. It might be better to allocate that towards a separate campaign right? And modify how that traffic does for a period of time before you negative match it, but those are some things that I would think of. Karate Studio again. Karate might end up being interchanged with some other forms of martial arts, so making sure you negative match those other martial arts as well. I'm sure there's a lot of them. You have me kind of put on a spot here. Get with me afterwards and we can walk through a list. Oh, yeah. Oh, I certainly don't mind. I'm sorry. Yeah, so the question is, what are those competitive edge tools that you can use? And so to give you an idea of what some of them are is if you were to log into your account and you're looking at your campaigns, there's an opportunity for you to look at what's called auction insights, right? Are you familiar with this particular area of the dashboard? Essentially what auction insights allows you to be able to do is to see how many other people are competing for that particular, for the keywords that are in that particular segment, and how often they're showing above you or below you. And so what makes that great is if you're monitoring that frequently, you can see whether or not some of your particular competitors might be investing more, becoming more aggressive. Oftentimes that can help you determine whether or not that's the reason for some costs going up. You can see when people who do not have as well structured a campaign, who might be indirect competitors, they're competing for a term, but they're not necessarily the same market, driving up cost. There's not really, what makes that important is not, you can't necessarily block them out from competing with you, but what you can do is use that tightly themed campaign structure to modify the budget that you're applying to those segments, knowing that you're competing with these other people who might not necessarily be as relevant. And you can either become more aggressive or pull back spend if that's not as profitable to you. So that's one of the areas that's really important with regards to competitive tools. Another great thing is people who are familiar with product listing ads, now Google Shopping, what you can now see, which wasn't available for a long time, is what people are spending on average for these here and what the average click-through rate is. So you can use that as a comparative metric to see if you're kind of, you know, running along with them, or if you're spending more for less. So, any other questions? Great, display. I don't think so.
Okay, can you guys hear me in the back? Awesome. So as Phil said, I'm going to talk a little bit about display. How many people actually use display advertising? Can I get a raise of hands? That's kind of what I figured. Not many people use display advertising that I think probably should. Probably a lot of you guys who are agency owners or work at agencies probably are working with clients who want that immediate sale. So you guys are probably using search ads, but display advertising has plenty of opportunities that you should be made aware of. So 3 things that we're going to cover tonight is not taking advantage of bid adjustments and actually knowing what kind of terminology you should know when getting into display advertising. Also, a lot of people I see are wasting money on non-qualified customers within AdWords. That goes with display and with search. With search advertising, I see this tons of times, and it's definitely, we need to look at ways to save money in our display advertising. And also, and this is more of a pet peeve of mine that I want to talk about tonight, is remarketing to everyone. We're probably familiar with that terminology in this room, and we all probably are being retargeted right now online in ads, and we actually need to think about and focus about how that's being done in today's digital age. So saying that, because only a few of you guys raised your hands, we really need to talk a little bit about what is display advertising. Obviously, if you've been to a website recently, you've probably seen a display ad in some form. Display ads basically start in 2 forms if you're just going for a visual ad. That's going to be a banner like the one in the top, as well as a box that you see right there. I mean, this also takes into account that ads come in the shapes of video, copy, but when you think of images, display advertising comes in these 2 forms. Obviously, again, display advertising, not many of you people know about this. Why do people pick display advertising? Again, because it creates a captivating ad using images and video. That's not to say you can use something just copy. A lot of people just copy those search ads over to the display ads, and that's okay. But you really need to ask yourself what your goal is for your campaign. Obviously, you can precisely target people. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Unlike Google AdWords search, you can actually target people in more than just keywords, which is really awesome what you do doing into it. Also, you can re-engage with people who have previously visited your website. Obviously, again, we have retargeting that a lot of you guys know about, but you can do that tonight as well. So setting a search campaign up, it's basically simple, a display campaign up. Just like search, it's timed, scheduling, budget, locations. You guys are probably all familiar with this. But, beyond that, display advertising is its own beast. I get clients like this guy all the time, Joe, the home construction guy. Probably a few of you guys have had him as well. He comes into your office, he's like, oh, I have this awesome display advertising campaign that I created at home. But it's not converting. What's going on? And you dive down into it, and you just give him that look of shock on your face. You're like, you really had no idea what you were doing. But he's a client just like anybody else. He wants to make money online, but he doesn't really know what he's doing. When it comes to search advertising, he really doesn't have the practice nor the patience that many of us do. With search or with display advertising, obviously, it's more than just keywords. We have keywords, we have interests, we have demographics, we have topics information that's available to us. Saying that, it's important that we know exactly what these mean. What happens a lot of time in display advertising is people create ads just based on the keywords that they're familiar with. Again, going back to Joe, the construction guy, we get ads such as, home remodeling, home construction, window fixing. But, he has a variety of other things he needs to look into. He has interests. This is going to be based on what people have previously visited online. So if Joe was targeting me, he would probably look for me to have probably visited the Home and Garden Channel's website online. What's that? Or for me, a Diet Coke, exactly. There are also topics. Depending on what the website is, you can actually target that particular website. So if I was actually on the Home and Garden website right now, I could actually target that website based on the content that it is. And what's really cool now is Google actually allows you to target people based on demographics. So we hear that a lot of times with Facebook that you can target on demographic data. With Google, you can now do some of the same thing. They're pulling that from some of their properties. This includes Google+. So you can do, as of right now, age, sex, and now actually parental status. So if you're a parent, and I've probably disclosed that on Google+, you may be seeing ads from stuff like Babies R Us in the near future. So keep that in mind. Again, you're probably thinking, yeah, baby ads, there's more than just that. Let's go back to our example of Joe, the home remodeler. Who's probably going to buy a house? Is probably going to be someone who's probably 30 to 40, who probably has kids. He's not going to want to target somebody like me or, a few of the other ones in here that are probably straight fresh out of college. And so saying that, he really needs to, look into his keywords. And a suggestion that I always have for people is always play around with bid adjustments. So obviously we can put our keywords in there, but what we need to do is also do bid adjustments based on that category. So if we're like bidding with Joe and we're bidding on our home construction, home remodeling website or keywords, we can also add some categories right here. Like, let's specifically add a bid increase of 25% in home furnishings, or a 25% bid increase in Bed Bath & Beyond. Those kind of websites that, kind of like, hey, this is specifically the target group. This is something that people don't do often, because, again, what people are doing when they're setting up these campaigns is they're a little bit of alien and, not understandable of display to begin with. So they're just putting those search keywords in there. So one thing that's going to help you guys, if you guys do want to play around with display advertising, you guys probably heard about the Google Keyword Planner. A lot of us know about it because Google Analytics is taking away a little bit of our data. We can get some of that from the Google Display Manager. It's a tool just like the Keyword Planner that you guys have probably played with AdWords that I would suggest taking a look at. You can get keywords, interests, topics, retargeting. I was taking a look at basketballs or ATO just to try and see for a sports client what kind of, AdWords opportunities were out there. But there are tons of data you can get from this. I would suggest taking a look at this at home. So going on, the number 2 issue that I see a lot of people have issues with is that they use a lot of wasteful spending. How many people here have set up negative keywords in their search campaigns? Okay, so some of you are familiar with negative keywords. That's good to know. You can do the same thing with Google Display Network. However, you have even more options than just setting up negative keywords. What you can actually do is you can look at placements. These are going to be where your websites or where your ads are actually landing on what websites. So, for example, with Joe, if all of his ads were landing on OkCupid, he probably doesn't want to get that audience. So we can actually do an exclusion on that ad and make sure that his ads don't show up on that website. Same goes for any of you guys. If you guys have, a product or a service ad that's showing up on a website that you guys don't like, you can simply take it out. This is just a look at it right quick. Obviously, we can take keywords for those who are familiar with it. You can also do categories and placements. So it's worth always playing around with. And I actually owe this tip to a coworker of mine, Patrick Stocks, who's here in the audience. Remove porn, pure, poker, and apps from all of your ads. Because the reason why I say this is, has anybody ever actually clicked on an ad in an app and meant to do it? So a lot of times our display ads are showing up in apps. We need to turn that off because, nobody's actually going to click on that. Yes, it's cool to show our boss at the end of the day that we had a lot of impressions for this ad, that our ads are showing up on the ESPN app, but at the end of the day, if it's not doing the job, you ask me, it's not worth it. And you can take a look at a few of these other ones. I think they kind of go, common sense. Obviously, anything pornographic, anything sexual related, we want to make sure our ads are not showing up in these websites. Well, unless you've worked in some of the industries Phil has worked in. So last but not least, I want to talk about remarketing. Obviously, remarketing is a hot terminology these days. Who is actually doing remarketing ads in here? A few of you guys. That's good. Remarketing definitely has tons of opportunities. For those who aren't familiar with remarketing, that's when you go to a website and 5 days later you see an ad from said website somewhere following you around, following you wherever you go. That actually happened to me today. It gets kind of annoying after a while, and that's my concern with it right now, is that we're going to be remarketing not just in the Google Ad Network, but it's also starting to happen in Facebook. So we really need to precisely target our remarketing ads. These are a few of the options you have. Visitors who visit a page, visitors who did not visit a page. You can take a look at this, play around with it. But what I really suggest you do is look at some of the conditions and rules you can set up. So going back to Joe, our home remodeling guy, something we talked about was doing remarketing ads to people who visit his contact page. Good idea. You don't submit a submission through his contact page. He's going to follow you around 5 days later. However, specifically with him, we set up 2 particular ads. If you visited his About page and the contact form page, you're going to get an ad of him. Because obviously you went to the About page, you spent your time to actually get to know Joe. If you didn't go to the contact page but just went to a service page, we just have ads based on his product listings and some of the services he does. Again, these ads are going to get more and more popular on the internet as people get used to them. So I suggest customizing them as best you can, because if not, they're going to annoy people and people are just going to ignore your company. a cool little idea if you are aware of what kind of remarketing ads are following you online. Go to whoisretargeting.me. I apologize. Whoisretargeting.me. Refresh it a few times. It always shows you who is retargeting you. It's a cool little website to go to. Again, going back to my home contractor, Joe, when I was doing research, I apparently landed on a Steele website. So I have this Steele website now following me everywhere I go. And again, these guys didn't put any time to customize this ad. Yeah, it's 5% off, but I went to the homepage, that's it. I don't really care. Some SEO guy is probably sitting there at their office going, oh, this ad was seen by 5 people today. But at the end of the day, if it's not making money to me or not making money to my clients, it's useless. So obviously we have some PPC SEO ads. I work in the online marketing space, so that's kind of standard for me to see. So, but to recap, just 3 things. I know I kind of flew by that. Is use keywords, interests, and targets to the best of your ability. There are definitely tons of options there in the Google Display Network that we need to take advantage of. Trim your audience. Try to avoid wasteful spending. I can talk about negative keywords in the search network, but at the same time, do the same thing with the display network. Use negative keywords and eliminate, the websites that aren't getting you money, as well as the categories that aren't going to give you money. Again, going back to the app situation, who really clicks on apps? Yeah, your goal might just be for a branding perspective. That's okay. But at the end of the day, if we're not making money for our companies, we're failing. So I try to make sure I take that. Also, customize your remarketing. Really try and put some effort into the content of your ad, as well as where people are getting that cookie that's following them everywhere. But that's about it. Again, I know I went by that a little bit fast. My name is Cole Watts. I work at The Design. A little plug for some of the nonprofits I'm involved in here on the Triangle. TEMA, Movember, the Food Bank, they have an event coming up at the end of the year that I encourage all of you guys to get involved with. Also, a special thanks to everybody who helped me with this presentation. Some of my co-workers who couldn't make it here tonight. Go ahead.
Animated GIFs or videos in terms of remarketing. I have several that came up when I contacted. How do I put some beautiful videos or animated GIFs, post them as ads?
So that's the video advertising part of Google AdWords. I was actually playing around with this just the other day, so they've kind of separated it. And Nina, you can feel free to speak up if you want to. But so you actually have to set up your YouTube account with your Google AdWords account now, and then you get a variety of options for retargeting options. Just like, I kind of showed you with, when you go to remarketing right now, these are a few of the options you get. Once you have your YouTube account tied into your Google AdWords, you have like about, I think it's 5 or 6 different options. It's like, hey, show the video at the beginning of the video or so on. So, but to answer your question, first thing you need to set up is set up the YouTube and Google AdWords. It's in the account settings. It asks to, I think, put in your Google AdWords ID number. So.
Some of the other ads might be seeing a rich media format, particular type of ad, and that will help give you those beautiful GIFs that you were mentioning. I recommend that when you're creating these GIFs that you find somebody who's talented with making it happen and piecing it together, because even though they seem like they are great for attracting attention to them, they're oftentimes found to be the ones that are most often ignored. Because they can be really irritating if they're not attractive enough. Sure. So before applying money to it, I would make sure that you have somebody who's a professional who can actually do it.
I mean, just like any campaign, really think about it. Think about what your goals are going into it. If it's, I know. So, but I mean,
Yeah, it would be probably very great for you.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, we're already on there. I just don't know with the.
Yeah. I have your actual ad following me around, so, which is awesome, by the way. But yeah, I mean, there are tons of options with video advertising and video remarketing. I think, as of right now, video in general, AdWords is going to probably branching off on its own eventually. A few years ago, it was, or up to last year, it was considered part of display. But now you have to jump through a few hoops, set up the YouTube account with the AdWords account, and now it's completely different. So.
I'll call you.
Is there an advantage of ever going with a text ad over an image or a video? And then the second part of that question is what's the happy medium? Are images ideal for these ads, or are videos ideal for a video production company?
So the question was what kind of ad should you use? Should you use copy? Should you use display? Well, copy, should you use video? Should you use images? At the end of the day, it really matters what your goals are. And what I always like to tell people is, and if I skipped over it, I apologize, with search, yeah, it's good to be there, but a lot of search happens to be a lot of what I call emergency ads, a lot of plumbing, a lot of electricians, your flooring, your home contractor, these are going to be your short-term buys. With videos, with display, with remarketing in general, these are going to be ads that have longer sales funnels and longer sales cycles. So, if you want that short-term buy, display might be a good opportunity for you. If you're selling a product, display and the product listing ads you can get would be good. But, maybe then too, you just want some branding. So if you want branding, display advertising would be the way to go.
The only thing that I'll add to that is to consider where your audience is. Like, where are they? What do they do? What websites are they looking at? What content are they consuming? And when you're looking at where they are, that will kind of help you determine which formats are the best to show, right? So that's really helpful. And that's just the one thing that I would kind of add to what Cole had mentioned, because otherwise it seems pretty.
So I would just to add to that a little bit. A lot of people would use the display network and think images. Like, I'm just going to use image ads in the display network. Personally, we've tested text ads and image ads against each other on the display network, and our text ads work better on the display network than the image ads do. So try both and just see which one works better.
I mean, at the end of the day, she brought up a good point. Just test. Do you have something to add, JT? Go ahead.
Actually, digging into that a little bit, my opinion is, I think it actually comes down to what you said earlier, is the problem with marketing is right now, you put an ad up, it's clearly following you around, right?
Yeah.
But that's because most of the time your creative doesn't match the design of the site you're on. So the challenge you have with a display or any kind of content-based ad is going to be, how does your ad look on that page that you're not using? So you almost have to genericize your design in a way that it blends in, because you're going to get more clicks if you look like content than you are if you look like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why text works better, because the image might clash.
And it's not offensive. CNN has just started putting out a few audio ads, so they can be on my homepage or on my desktop. No more. That was the fastest way to dump them. All of a sudden, this computer starts screaming at me about Russian terrorists.
I mean, at the end of the day, JT brought up a good point. Really just test it. Obviously, the display ads you create are going to be different from the display ads that I create or the display ads that Nina create. Really test it. Your market, your niche is going to be something different than probably what I'm going to be working on tomorrow. So.
And it's important to not just test the format, but to test the content itself. I had a client who was doing some display work. They were in the insurance space, and they had these display ads that were created for them, which were nice in theory. But they didn't work very well, they didn't convert very well, and so what they thought was, okay, well, if they're not converting, then display must not be the place for me to be at. And the truth of the matter is that as soon as we were able to modify those, just modifying the messaging, modifying some images, maybe the color or whatnot, we found a very different rate of return on those. So it's very important to test each element of these before you completely kind of disregard a particular format. So.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, also think about, what you're actually targeting. think if the audience you're targeting is the right audience. Again, something that I always look at first time, be it search, be it display advertising, is do you have any negative keywords, negative, interest placement set up? What I see a lot of time is people wasting a lot of money.
That reminds me, we could go on about this all day, really, so I'm going to try to stop after this. But with regards to the display, when you're doing that, make sure that, much to Cole's point, is that you want to make sure it's relevant. So again, going back to this example with the insurance, he offers a lot of different types of insurance. He's an insurance broker. He offers home insurance, car insurance, and whatnot. And what we did is we made sure that his campaigns were only serving ads to those people who had visited certain pages of his site that represented certain types of insurance. So they're not necessarily seeing his overall brand. They're seeing the type of insurance he offers for the pages that they've visited. And so that also is very helpful.
I think I saw a question over.
Yeah. How good are you in statistics? How good do you have to be to manage them well, your campaigns?
So,
I guess if you want an experiment, for instance, A/B testing like that, you have to have a certain number of questions you have to make a judgment.
exactly. And all right, so his question is, how good do you have to be with statistics in order to be able to determine whether or not certain types of ads are performing well against others in your A/B testing, or pages are performing or whatnot? How these different elements work. And I'll tell you this, my math skills rely a lot on Excel and the hours and hours I put into formulas for all of my sheets. But what I'll tell you this is there are a lot of tools available to help you find out the statistical relevance that's happening between ads. And I can pull up a couple of those for you if you'd like off to the side. But essentially what it allows you to do, if you don't already have it in a spreadsheet that you're tracking, or using one of these tools as a third-party app or service or whatnot, is to put in the amount of impressions that each of the, like your A and your B variants have, and then the amount of conversions or the amount of clicks or whatever it is you're looking at. And then that will go ahead and determine for you. And you can set a point whether or not you want it to have like a 90% kind of rate before it determines a winner, or 95%. We aim for 95. I have some clients that go as high as 98. But it then becomes up to you where you want to set that threshold at, but there's tools available. Yeah. Yeah, pull me aside and I'll give you.
I'll just add, Excel is your friend, be it, search, be it display, even Google Analytics. Any kind of online formula you're looking at today, you just have to know Excel. If there's anybody young in here who's looking to get into this field, I would say learn how to manage Excel.
It's probably about 90% of my day.
When should someone call for outside help? When do you know when you're in over your head?
When you don't like Excel. No.
Yeah, sure. So when to call an expert, it really comes down to your resources. It's all about, your return on investment, right? How much money you're putting in. So not just the ad spend that you're using in marketing, but the time and the resources that it's taking you to do that. And when you determine that you've kind of exceeded that threshold, it's important to then consider an agency, because even though you're looking at agency rates or, some kind of consultant, the amount of time it takes them to complete these processes and do these testing, and the amount of time that they're investing in the management just goes faster and is more effective. And so you're actually coming out cheaper on the with regards to the return that you're getting.
But if I set it up, let it go.
But you're still spending money.
Then you're wasting spend.
But Phil just asked for those watching at home, can you just set a campaign, walk away from it, and be happy with it? You brought up the fact, no, you can't, because you're wasting spend if you're not testing it.
You're kind of stagnant.
Yeah. I actually have a client who actually came to us for a different service than PPC, but gave us a look at their PPC account. And they were like, we're doing just fine. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh my gosh. you're not okay. So what you do in a situation like that, what I would suggest is figure out how much a customer will cost for you, and then figure out how much you're spending. If you get 5 customers a month, and you're spending, $1,000 from PPC, is it really worth it to you in the end?
You're $1 million client. They say they're comfortable as long as I get the customer and the customer comes again and again and again. In the end, it doesn't matter if I spend $50, $100, or $200 on that single ad.
So what I would suggest actually is just ask them if you can set up some kind of tracking with them. If they have any kind of goal tracking, even event tracking, if it's a submission form, set up some kind of tracking so that way you know if those ads are actually leading to the conversion online.
And there's ways to look at that too. It's not necessarily just the conversion that you get in that moment, but Google Analytics is an awesome tool, and it allows you to be able to see what the behavior looks like for those people who are first-time visitors versus those people who are return visitors. And those metrics are going to be really important in determining whether or not that's effective, an effective model for that particular individual who thinks that, whatever the cost is, it's worth it. Purple shirt and then green shirt.
What kind of metrics do you use to determine ROI on a brand awareness campaign? You're getting traffic, but is it qualified traffic? Are you going to look at exit rate? Are you going to look at time on page? Like, how are you really determining that the money you're spending is worth it?
So I guess that would be the question, or the answer to that is different for every company. So the question was, how do you, I'll bring the microphone so you can hold it as.
So the question is basically, what types of metrics do you need to be looking at to measure ROI on a brand awareness campaign?
So I would look at ROI of, I would assume, a new service, a new product, the company overall. It really depends on what you're looking at. What I would look at is actually the landing pages. The landing pages, and then seeing if they're clicking over, doing what you want to do, if they're actually spending time on your website. So average time on site, exit rate, stuff like that is what I would look at.
There's 2 things that I think are very important for people when they're determining what they consider return on investment. And there's return on investment in the traditional sense. And again, I try to tell clients to look at this as the resources that are involved in actually managing campaigns too. There's the separate one that is the return on the ad spend, right? And so, making sure that you understand what you're measuring against is the first step to being able to determine whether or not it's effective, right? Are we looking at it for just the spend that we're applying to it, or are we looking at it for the management, the spend, and everything else that goes into those campaigns and how they interact with others? The second part of that, when you're looking at metrics for brand awareness, it's very important to, again, consider Google Analytics. You can tie some of this into AdWords and see some of those metrics within the dashboard without having to transfer to the other. But again, you were right. Looking at the time on page that they're spending there is going to be important. Looking at bounce rate is going to be incredibly important. Are they immediately leaving the page once they've gotten there? With AdWords, I try to tell people to be a little bit mindful about time on page, and here's why. With AdWords, if you're doing it right, with either display or search, if you're doing it right, then you're taking people to the most relevant content that applies to them. So they're not needing to spend a whole lot of time on your site because they've already gotten to the page that's most relevant. So they might not be spending as much time per page as you might see with other channels. So, yes.
I'm marketing a lot of luxury apparel right now, and I was saying I'm marketing a lot of luxury apparel right now, so it's a lot of brand awareness. And some of the things we do, it is just like impressions, like how much reach that we have. But the client is assuming that we're doing all this right, that the ads aren't showing up in silly places like porn sites. But we also implement some, say, soft conversions, say a newsletter sign up, some kind of download, email for a coupon. So those are just some of the things that we're kind of implementing, but I don't know if that necessarily worked for the industry that you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks for it.
Right. Am I missing something? Okay. Am I missing something, or is managing the PLAs practically impossible?
They keep changing the game on us with PLAs, right? So as soon as you learn it, things change. People finally got comfortable with PLAs, and then it turned into Google Shopping campaigns, which is a little bit different. Some similarities. They're trying to make it more flexible, though. So with regards to how to make these shopping campaigns work for you, there's really something that's important that a lot of people don't use. It's not just about your product feed, right? Remember, that's all the information you can put in. There's nothing else you can really add to it. So your performance is only as good as the information that's within your feed first, right? Secondly, with regard to that feed, I try to tell people to look at the descriptions, right? Because this is what's going to determine whether or not you show up in these searches. And so I tell people to typically move their keywords that people are searching for closer to the front of those descriptions. And oftentimes that will help with in terms of the impressions that are taking place. But with regards to managing after you get these impressions, take advantage of labels. Google gives you a lot of opportunities to add additional labels or columns into your product feed. Take advantage of them and assign different labels per your products for whatever the priorities are so that you can manage against them. And you can segment them out separate from the rest of your products and allocate budget appropriate with return. Does that answer your question? Or do you have something a little bit more specific?
Yeah, I will.
It's bothering me that when you submit the product, I just gave up on it. Because it would just show up as numbers. Like, I don't even have that many, 50.
Mm-hmm.
And when you would go to manage it, it would just show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't know which product it was even relative.
It's a lot easier now. I will say that. Yeah. Catch me if you can
Awesome,
afterwards.
I haven't dealt with product feeds in about 2 years, and I just remember it being a headache like you imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they've done over the last few years to make it a little bit easier in terms of management. It's still a beast in the sense that there's not a lot you can do from within the platform itself. But
You cannot assign like a different cost per click to each different item, which I thought was crazy. Maybe it's changed, but it was like, why can't that just be?
you can bid on them now. You can bid on them now. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, match types. Okay, this is. Okay. She asked if I could talk a bit about match types, and if I can find. Yeah, I was looking for an eraser, but so there's essentially. They say 3, but there's really 4 different types of match types available. All right, so Karate Studio, right? So you'll see this kind of look, in the brackets for Karate Studio, and this means that whoever's searching for it has to search Karate Studio just like that, no difference. The only thing that you can change from the setting standpoint to give us a little bit more flexibility is to say I'm going to allow for plurals and misspellings, right? So it might be Karate Studios. If someone accidentally makes this an E for whatever reason, right, it might show up. But that's essentially how exact match works. Phrase match is a little bit different, right? And this is where you might want to consider how you break out some of your campaigns. or how you want to tackle negative matches, negative match types. And the reason why is the phrase match allows you to put anything before or after this phrase. So if I'm looking for best karate studios, right, the phrase match is going to capture that. Or if I want to look for karate studios in Raleigh, right? So broad says, right, that not only am I going after karate studio, but I might be going after judo studio or taekwondo studio or, you know, other synonyms for studio that might or might not be relevant. Might happen. What I like here is broad match modifiers too, and this is what you can do to say, and this is why it's so great. You remember when I was talking about segmenting campaigns in such a way that you can look at intent? Be sure to include some of these here in those campaigns. If I find that the majority of my audience really likes a particular style of karate, or maybe they like a karate studio that has like a certain feature, right? Then I'm going to make sure that I include that. And what it says is that the search query has to have the word karate in it. It has to have the word studio in it, and it has to have that unique feature or whatever modifier that I find that I'm getting a lot of return on. And it doesn't matter how it looks here. It doesn't matter if it has something before or after it, and it kind of serves a little bit like broad match, hence the name. But it ensures that this feature here is within the query. And so it's a good way to kind of take advantage of the reach that happens with broad match, but having more control.
And one thing that makes me cringe a little bit is that people don't realize it, but when you first put AdWords into a campaign, it's going to stall it out as broad. So when we were talking about stuff like negative keywords and stuff like that earlier on, what's happening is you're putting karate studio in, and it's picking up all kinds of gibberish that's not relevant to your karate studio. That's why Google, you know, created stuff like phrase match, exact match, broad match, you know, to really get you to pinpoint what you want. And if you want to stick with broad match, really look at your reports, look at what keywords people are actually clicking on when they do go to your website that is causing you to lose money in AdWords, and create that as a negative keyword.
More questions?
That's a little intimidating.
I think nobody else was raising their hand. Anyone want to guess how much money Google's going to make off their AdWords product this year? Come on, throw out a number. $50 billion this year. So when you think, I just have to bid more and pay more, know that everybody else is doing the same thing as you. I think that's it. No more questions? Well, thank you.
How much does your highest paying client pay per month?
That I do not know.
When you get to, can I answer some of this?
Yeah.
When you get to some of this, when you start doing big ad spends, most agencies just take a percentage. So it's not usually, I'm paying you, $200 an hour. It's a percentage of the ad spend. So once those numbers get big.
Yeah.
Well, even local companies like iContact, they were spending $1 million a month. Yeah.
Easy.
Somebody like Sales Advisor, they manage Lands End,
Cole was talking to me a couple weeks ago about how one of the clients he mentioned here tonight, he found $40,000 in wasted spend.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it's not just that. I mean, so to backtrack a few years ago, I worked at a medical and disability company. Completely e-commerce. We were an online retailer of medical and disability products. you'd be surprised the amount of AdWords we would spend in a day just to get people. Again, we're on national retail, so you think just $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Some of that might just be for the state, some of that might be for locally, but you get bigger campaigns that we're talking nationwide, then we start including Canada, Mexico, even Europe. Think about the ad spend that's going on those levels.
That's it. Thank you.
One more here.
Oh, man.
What's the most expensive keyword?
Yeah. Probably Mesothelioma.
That's a great question.
I've seen
$226 a click.
merchant accounts. I've seen that be very expensive too. Merchant accounts. And it's just insane the amount of money they spend per click. Nonetheless, how much they spend per day.
How about you?
I actually heard this on the radio. Immediate divorce settlement in New York.
Wow.
$350.
Boston is not much different.
A friend told me.
A friend told me. Yeah. Boston is not much different.
Well, I mean, just in general, though, I would imagine both the legal and the medical field, any kind of PPC price, even locally here on the Triangle, and, you're talking New York. Let's think about Boston, Los Angeles, a lot of these big old cities. We're just going to jack those prices even up higher than they are here on the Triangle.
A lot of expensive terms in pharma, too. Pharma software.
That's it. Let's give these guys a hand. Thank you, guys.
Who do we have next month?